I'm Nick Rossi for Acoustic Guitar. Today I'm going to be talking about and playing Picking the Guitar, written and recorded by Nick Lucas. New Jersey-born Nick Lucas was this country's first homegrown guitar hero, and he recorded this composition numerous times during his long career, which stretched from the early 1900s all the way until his death in 1982. The 1922 recording has been pointed to by some historians as the first solo hot jazz guitar record. And his 1932 version is very familiar to those of us who are fans of early acoustic jazz. The song has three sections or strains very similar to many ragtime compositions as well as Italian string songs from the same era. The syncopated rhythm is also somewhere in between ragtime and hot jazz of the 1920s. I'm also going to be playing a bit closer to the bridge for a nice crisp attack. In addition to that, I'll be focusing on downstrokes, both of which were aspects of the tradition and technique that Nick Lucas emerged from. Nick had a very personal and somewhat idiosyncratic guitar technique, which makes playing his compositions both fun and challenging. But this is a solo guitar arrangement, so I have a little bit of leeway both in terms of how I approach the sections as well as the time. So here on my 1934 Epiphone Broadway with bronze strings and a celluloid heavy pick is Nick Lucas's Picking the Guitar. One suggestion for approaching picking the guitar is to learn each of the individual strains separately, thinking of them as maybe different movements of music. Of course, there's the main theme which ties it all together, and it's very important as you're working through the individual sections that you maintain the same tempo. Otherwise, making that transition back to the main theme can sound rather jarring or just plain bad. But conceptualizing the piece in sections and then rebuilding that piece together when you sit down and play it as a whole is a great way to think of the music. Another suggestion that I strongly recommend is finding the more difficult passages for you to play. For me, for example, it can be the articulation of these arpeggiated diminished chords. Find that section, really work on the time for a section that's giving you any challenges, and base the tempo of your performance on those sections. Build from there. Build and pick up speed rather than trying to overplay and eventually tripping over your own fingers. A big part of the Nick Lucas technique, particularly when he was accompanying himself on the guitar with no other instruments, was being able to utilize full chord forms. So another way to approach this piece of music is to scan through it and look for big familiar chords masquerading as arpeggios or single note lines. For example, in the second strain, it's a very typical A minor chord form. But on paper, it may be a little deceiving because it's just single notes. So feel free to form the chord forms as you're picking out the individual notes, and lean heavily on the chords if you are indeed playing the music as a solo guitarist. If you feel the need to fill out a section here or there, or provide kind of a wider accompaniment beyond just playing those crisp single notes.